All right. Push the button.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We will call the January 24th meeting of Caroline County Board of Supervisors to order. Let the record state that all board members are present. Mr. Forehand representing Madison, Mr. Black representing Western Carolina, Mr. Seeley representing Bowling Green, Mrs. Long representing Port Royal, Mr. Underwood representing Reedy Church, and I'm Floyd Thomas representing Mattapanai. At this time, I've asked Mrs. Long if she would lead us in an invocation, followed by the pledge.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us here tonight. We ask your guidance as we make decisions that are best for the county and for our friends and family throughout the county and the state. We ask, dear Heavenly Father, that you be with us all as we travel home, bring us together again. In your name, amen.
Amen. You join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Opening board comments. Alphabetical. Mr. Black.
Going alphabetical, nice. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple things, Mr. Chairman. First of all, last night at the GWRC meeting, and maybe we can talk about this with an agenda item with the Board of Supervisors and staff. But last night at the GWRC meeting, the smart scale projects for the all the localities were announced, and smart scale, of course, is the transportation. As far as funding for transportation projects, Stafford, Fredericksburg, and Spotsylvania all had several projects that were scored very well with the state, and it looks like they're going to get considerable state funding for road projects in their localities. And I know we have to put up money for some of those, but you can definitely leverage state money with those. And it was the Planning District 16 set a record for how much money in smart scale they got, and $0 coming to Caroline. So I think it's something that we need to seriously consider and look at some of the projects that we want to do across the county that we're in need of, because that's the way that we need to leverage state money. I think that's how we got Ladysmith Road, yes, the funding for Ladysmith Road. So I think it's something we definitely need to take a look at. Also, if we could at some point, last night there was a recognition and just kind of the grant for Habitat for Humanity that they what they're doing down here in Carolina at GWRC. And if we could invite Mr. Tickle at some point to come to a board meeting to kind of just explain how Habitat for Humanity works in Caroline, I think that would be solve some of the concerns that I think some people have in regards to just in regards to Habitat, if people have regards or any issues or concerns. And finally, the Polar Bear Plunge is coming up Saturday, February 4th at Lake Landor, and we are feverishly, right now there's actually a kind of a fundraiser event going on at Timbers as we speak, but we are feverishly trying to raise money for the organizations that are involved in it. And it is, last year, like we said, it was $43,000, and all that money pretty much stays in Caroline. So it's a really, really worthy cause, and I hope that people come out and support it. Thank you.
The date again for the plunge?
Saturday, February 4th, starting at 10 a.m.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Black. Mr. Forehand?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
None from Mr. Forehand. Mrs. Long?
Mr. Black, what time is the actual plunge?
The actual plunge is at noon. But the costume contest, the silliness and so forth that Mr. Hebert does is will be at starting at 11.
Right, Mr. And he has a new video on us all today.
Yeah, he does that. He does.
What is it, Snowflake Pirate or something?
Yes,
like
he
that?
is. He is. He is an interesting character.
So there will be
does a great job.
Special contest for anybody who wants to come dressed as a pirate too. So I'll put that out there. No, I have nothing additional. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Long. Mr. Seeley?
I have none, Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Underwood?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just have two comments. Went to a Rappahannock Area on Aging meeting called Healthy Generations, and they're doing their 5-year strategic plan. Because of COVID, their costs have increased exponentially, and there are a lot of services available to our seniors and some of our disabled. And I'd like to have Ms. Patricia Holland, who's the director, come before the board and give us some information about what is available. Oftentimes, our citizens are not aware of programs that are available, and they end up calling maybe some of you guys for support. And really, there are funds and there's money that's given to them to help with Meals on Wheels and going to doctor and helping with home care. So I think it's important that we know what's available to us. Secondly, I just say that I'm hoping that our social services continue to work closer with the Rappahannock Area on Aging, better known as Healthy Generations. And secondly, I was down in Richmond with Mrs. Long and Mr. Cully for Local Government Day. It was a good day. A lot of bills on the table that we should take a look at. A lot of interesting things that the General Assembly is taking a look at that we really should have a voice in terms of how it affects our board and how it affects our local government. And that's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Underwood. I just have a couple quick ones. One is I'd asked Mr. Cully during the staff meeting if we could move our February 14th meeting from Valentine's Day to the 21st. And I understand he's got a conflict, but I had confirmed a guest for the 21st already. So when we get to that, if we could stick to the 21st, we're just having presentations anyhow. So I'm sure Mr. Parton can handle that. Right, Mr. Parton? Okay. And the other one is the county's broadband committee met last night for the first time this year. It's our first meeting. They have pretty much talked about Starlink, which is the satellite program, and we're still waiting for the VATI grant, which is the Virginia Technology Initiative grant. The website says December was the deciding point. We have some internal information that says it'll probably be sometime in March. So we're anxiously awaiting with our fingers crossed. And that concludes the public or the board comments. Mr. Cully, you have an amendment?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we'd like to add, if you would, to the agenda, purchase of software. You can add it under new business for finance.
We will have agenda item 7A, purchase of new software for finance.
Thank you.
And any board member have anything else he or she would like to add? Hearing none, we'll move for or ask for a motion to adopt the agenda with the addition of the item 7A.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay, motion's made by Mr. Seeley, seconded by Mr. Underwood. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. We will now move to presentations. We have the Meadow Event Park 2020 report. Marlene Joliffe, the Vice President of Operations and Executive Director of the State Fair of Virginia. Good to see you again.
You as well. Thank you all very much for allowing me the opportunity to be here tonight. It's a time that I always enjoy to let you know how the year went and talk about what we're looking at, for this year. Not that we have a crystal ball, but you can go ahead if you would and start our PowerPoint. So in your board packets, actually, I'll leave a pen here. You received a copy of the State Fair of Virginia's nonprofit Youth Development Board's annual report from 2022. So there was discussion at the last Board of Supervisors meeting I was at about our structure, and I think I followed up and cleared that up in an email. So we do have a nonprofit part of our organization that focuses solely on all of the activities you saw in that document that was in your board book. That's our scholarship, all of the youth livestock competitions, and the other primary part of that would be the Ed Expo activities that go on throughout the week. And that really tells you the story of what do we do with that and what is the mission and how much went back to our youth in scholarships and things to support their education. So that's one part of the operation. Tonight I'm going to focus in this slideshow more on the overall Meadow Event Park operation and some of the numbers from some of the events and just some of the highlights from last year, what we were able to achieve. Um, do I have a clicker? You're doing okay. So we can move on. The first slide is simply a picture that I find very intriguing, and that is the Meadow Event Park in 2008 when it was under construction. And so for me, it helps me look back at where, of course, I wasn't here then, but this is what it looked like when we started and where the roots of the organization are. And you're looking from the east to the west in the picture toward King's Dominion. And one of the best markers is in the upper right picture, upper right part of the picture. That's the Farm Bureau Center. So when you look at that, you see how far we've come in that amount of years with the infrastructure, and you look at the number of people that have visited the facility. And I find it amazing to never forget where the roots of the organization really were and how much progress has been made. So we can move on to overall in 2022. We really had a great year, and we had a hurricane on the last weekend of the state fair, and we stayed open, but for all intents and purposes, we kind of lost 3 days back to back. The good news that really was meant a lot to me from a management standpoint was that when the impending weather was announced and we start talking about it, people who had pre-purchased made the effort to come. And so we actually, on the Thursday of the state fair, had a record attendance. I think it was around 22,000. And that meant that people who had pre-purchased believed in it enough to use their tickets and come, and it was really a great day. Overall, on the property last year, we track our attendance, and I think this is it's pretty what I would call scientific because it comes from our promoters and from what I control. We had about 491,000 people, and we didn't set a record. Had we had a normal state fair, we would have. And you'll see on another chart how that compares to prior years. We track our event days. We had 339 event days. And then in 2022, we had 155 different events at the Meadow Event Park. That's a number that I'm really proud of because we've really worked hard in the last 8 years to diversify who we are and what we're doing, and we've attracted a very wide variety of events. So for the state fair, as far as the what kind of ended up to be, you can advance, ended up to be a 7-day run and a partial 3 days after that. You already know from your tax reports from earlier in late in 2022 that the effort to audit our food concessionaires led to growth in your tax collections. We did have a record year as far as food grosses, and that is with losing almost 3 days. A net promoter score is how we gauge our customer service, and that grew from a 21 in 2021 to a 30 in 2022. That's a very high score from in the hospitality industry. And really, that's your fairgoers and your guests saying, yes, we would recommend attending your event. So that was good. The overall attendance for the fair was around 160,000. We had around 200 different vendors. scholarships to just related to 2022 itself was 70,256, and those are scholarships that are really tied to fair participation. In all of the school programs, I felt this was pretty amazing. With 88 counties in the state of Virginia, we have 80 counties that had some form of representation in some part of the school programs in the Ed Expo. And for some of these kids, that's a long, long school bus ride from the southwest corner of Virginia. So that was a pretty incredible number. We had over 300 hours of live entertainment, and our social media posts from July to October saw over 7.4 million impressions. So next, I want to talk a little bit about some trends. I like for you to see where we were and where we've been. So this past year's facility attendance number at 491 was a little bit under 2021. So in a normal state fair year, we would have been up 550 to 560, which would have been a record for us. And if you look back to 2015, where we were doing some facility rentals, but not anywhere close to where we are right now, um, the chart tells the story of what our growth has looked like, and of course, 2020 was the pandemic year. Um, so then, as far as the makeup of overall attendance, if you'll move on, the for 2022, with the fair attendance down some, the fair was about 34% of our overall attendance, and then the after hours concert attendee numbers was about 18.5%, so just a little under 20. I get a lot of questions about the Illuminate light show, so I wanted to share with you what that has looked like since 2014. And the big number was the pandemic year when you couldn't do anything but drive your car around to look at things. So we fell off last year and expected to, but the really solid this year, a little above 28,000. About 2,000 of those are comp tickets and donated tickets that they do on the front end for um, frontline. They do some medical frontline worker comps and giveaways. So the average over the last, back to 2014, is right at 27,600. So if they can maintain above that average, I think that's where we'll see it over the next few years. And we'll be negotiating a new 3-year contract on that event. Our Meadow Event Park event days. This again is just a trend line to show you back to 2015 and where we've come from. We had sizable growth 18, 19, 20 really was a non event year. So 21 we grew steadily. So some of the drop from 21 to 22 in this figure is just that an event might be 4 days in 1 year and decide that 4 days is too much and they might drop a day off. But still a very sizable number, and we're reaching a point where it's hard to find dates to even offer to some of our interested promoters at this point on the weekends that they want them. We also tracked beyond event days, the unique events. That's important because I think what we've learned to do is to diversify, and we're able to do things on the north side of the property and the south side. And then when the concert series began in 2021, you realize that you get good at using different parts of your property. We've got a number of gates, so we're able to divide the traffic up, and we work with VDOT and local law enforcement and we've actually had a meeting to put together some just weekend event planning where we let folks know this is a weekend where all corners of the property don't just have events, but they're events that might generate significant traffic. So for this year, we're planning, this will be the third year of the Farm Festival, changing the schedule a little bit and into a Friday, Saturday. And just a reminder on that event, the overall goal is to grow it. I'd be happy this year if we can get 15,000 people, and we're moving that event to the Festival Loop area and staging a large part of that inside in the Farm Bureau Center to give us some weather protection. We've had 2 rainouts in that event, so May weather is very fickle, and we own the building, so we're going to try to protect that event. The BMW rally in June, and we meet weekly on that, and their registrations are surpassing their registrations at this time for their Missouri rally over 100%. So people are reacting very well to the location, and it's going to be a very big event the second week in June. We picked up a very large dog show from the Richmond International Raceway that's moving to the Meadow in June. And we also picked up the Richmond Oktoberfest, which was at RIR, and that will be, I think it's the third weekend in October. That's an event that uses the one half hall of the Farm Bureau Center with part of it staged outside as well. And it is exactly what it says, what you see. It's an Oktoberfest. It's been in the Richmond market for a long time, and we've actually talked to them 5 years ago, and they thought that Doswell and the Meadow Event Park was too far out of Richmond, and here we are in 2020, heading into 2023, and everybody is now seeing that it's a 20-minute drive for most places, no different than going east or west to events. So the other important number that I shared with my Farm Bureau board today is it's important for me and for our staff and for our operation and for you all to I can talk about new events all the time, but it's also important to really understand, are we losing events? And our retention on our events over the last really since we got through the pandemic and kept adding things very quickly, we have above a 90% retention rate. So we're keeping people. We do a survey after each event to see what they like and don't like, how our staff did, and we measure that and we pay attention to it. And it really helps from an infrastructure standpoint to sometimes uncover things that are really a stumbling block for people holding events. I can tell you one of the things that always came out of that was the electronic sign that um, we just installed the night before the state fair opened. It's already making huge differences in our events that are being held and the story that we're telling. We're getting phone calls from people who are driving by on Route 30 and they see an event and they want a contact for vendors. This past weekend's fishing show and expo had a record event, and he's been at the Meadow for probably 10 years or so. Um, so that has worked out very well. The next piece of information relates to what I shared last year, some information with you all, what we spend in the county. And we do have a goal this year of doing an economic impact study for the Meadow Event Park with more of the, identifying an economic multiplier and really looking at what is our impact overall on once you pay someone, where do the wages go? Um, so the total roughly is around 490. We pay our property tax, personal property taxes. We're missing on that Caroline County fees for licenses and permits about 5,000 in permits that actually were paid on credit cards that I overlooked. So roughly 17.5. And then in the county, we spend about right at $250,000 on what I call service categories. So we pay businesses to do services, or we have employees on our payroll that live in Caroline County. So that's $250,000. Um, I did not include here. I just didn't have time to get it, but of course it's there. But we do pay the transient occupancy taxes on all of the RV nights. That includes anyone that's in a campground or any camping piece that happens in relation to all the dog shows. And when you drive by and you see RVs in Festival Loop, they're charged we pay the transient occupancy tax on that. And then food and beverage, our beer sales throughout the year and the state fair generate taxes as well. And none of these figures include any of the after hours concert folks or a large entity like the Midway partner. This is just things that I control in our accounting system. And I think if we can find the right partner to do the economic impact study, we'll dive really deep into all of these pieces and have some more good information. This is just a rough sketch of what we hope the brand new restroom facility at the main gate looks like. It's desperately needed and would allow folks to have access to a restroom before they got into the fair if they're waiting on meeting someone, and would also allow people flowing out to have a restroom. But it also is going to be built so that we have the flexibility if we had a really heavy night during the state fair. There's a center divider that can get rolled up so that the entire facility that would then be used by all of your outflow. So that's on the radar. We're hoping if things keep moving along that we get to start on that immediately after we end this year's state fair. The other project that we're looking at, it's the restroom is priority over a maintenance shop, which I think I've shared with you all that we don't have, and our back end area is just not pretty. In fact, it's pretty ugly, but we do the best we can, and hopefully this will move along, and we can see some action on this. Hopefully, sometime in 2024. And that's basically a metal building. Both of these are built with the cupolas and things that would remind someone of the equine history of the property. I also think it's important to share, just to kind of look back on community involvement and not just be an entity that looks to attract people and make money. It's not always all about that, but we work hard in Caroline to give back to the community. So in 2020, we do the food bank location. We've been doing that, I think, 3 or 4 years now, actually. It started before 2020, so I think about 4 years. We hosted the YMCA's Youth Leadership Camp for the Dawn area in Meadow Hall at no charge. That was a great week because we also it gave our staff a chance to talk to some young teenagers about what our business is like and what some options for their a career down the road, and what the fair was all about. Anytime we get a call from local law enforcement, we have space, we have parking lots, we have lots of grass for canine training. We always say yes unless there's an event going on that just that we can't facilitate it. We plunged last year and are a donor on the polar bear plunge, and we'll be doing so again. 4-H and FFA groups in the county, whether it's a local club or a something to do with the middle school and high school programs, we always try to make space available when they need things. We have a corporate ticket donation program where nonprofits can request tickets for raffles and fundraisers. You can find that on our website. And then we have supported the Caroline Parks and Rec with tickets for some of their programs for the state fair. The one that I'm most excited about coming up this year is we've connected the BMW rally with Caroline's Promise to be the recipient of a raffle they do during their event. And in Missouri last year, this raffle generated over $12,000 for the nonprofit. So that, I hope, with the numbers looking like what they do now, I think that Caroline's Promise will benefit. And if you wonder if I get a request like that, how do we pick that entity? I polled some local, partners, and also they wanted someone that had a very local tie with no tie to a more of a national, widespread, large nonprofit. Um, on our challenges, the next slide, it's pretty simple because we're all facing it. It's costing us more across the board to do everything we do. And our utility bills, our supplies, any type of building project, it's just all increased. But we're all going through that. So we've had significant hikes in the minimum wage. And so that has really impacted us with our fair wages with our large partner who does all of the parking. Over the last 5 years, those wages have gone up 43%. And then our state police team this year, we had an increase there by, I think it was 10 to 12 from their raise that they got through the legislature. And then not only are we going through that, but we also see pressure from all of our vendor partners on the ground because they're paying more for things, and it's really hard sometimes to be able to be of value to the public, but also hold prices down for the things that people are buying. And so I think those are easily the four key challenges we're facing. And so the last slide that will share with you is just the dates for this year's State Fair of Virginia. And it really falls just about the earliest that it will because of a calendar shift. So it's September 22nd and runs through Sunday, October the 1st. And as of today, we'll be following a very similar schedule that will feel very, very much like prior years as far as days of the week and some of the structure to the actual event. With that, I am happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, first, thank you all for that report. Mr. Forehand, questions?
Just curious if if the promoter for the concerts has been in contact with you.
With the county?
With you regarding the venue continuing into 2023.
Well, we have a contract with the promoter, and they've filed their permit with the county.
Okay, so there is interest to come back again.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the permit application was filed before Christmas.
Okay.
And
I wanted to add one event because my kids do it, and I'm actually happy. One of the events that was moved from Richmond to Meadow Event Park was the state wrestling tournament for non-high school youth ages. So basically, 14 and under was moved from the Arthur Ashe Center to Meadow Event Park 2 years ago. So, and everyone that I've spoken with is absolutely delighted that it's here and not there. So, thank you.
Mr. Black?
Yeah, I just want to kind of go over the polar bear plunge. Obviously, the donation, that is a huge help to those in the community. And of course, you saw where the money went last year with the scholarships to a couple of high school seniors. So we really appreciate your support. The only question I have is I saw some that facility that you're building for like the bathrooms up front. Would that help the concert series at all? Because I think one of the things with the concert series, you and I have mentioned about, and I was just kind of curious if we've talked offline about that.
It's at the main gate area, so it would depend on where cars were parked, but it does not. It's a pretty far distance because you walk up through the tunnel and then up into the top. I do know and I know it's in the permit that was filed that I've talked to them and shared feedback we get, but there are efforts planned to improve the restroom situation.
Okay.
Not only the restroom situation, but the maintenance of the restroom situation.
Okay.
With their provider.
Yeah, because it's such a great, we've talked about how great of a venue it is, and you just want that, So,
yep.
Yeah, we appreciate everything, and thank you for doing the audit because you can see that made a huge difference. So, thank you very much.
Made a difference to me too.
Ms. Sealy?
I'll just say that I was to a couple of events at the Meadow Event Park this last year and can never get over the amount of folks that come. And I just see less issues with the state fair this year and even parking than we've had in the past. And I don't know if the numbers on those days was lower or not, but it just seemed like we've hit a rhythm on how to get people parked and how to get people off of Route 30. And I just appreciate the work into that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Long?
Yeah, I have a question. When you say event, you're talking, is that defined by people who purchase tickets? Because I know you have all sorts of meetings also, because I've been to a bunch of them there. Is that counted in your number?
Yes. So we don't count internal meetings, and we actually are able to track in our software. And I think I've provided it to the tax department on. We actually label an event when it gets booked that it's a revenue producing event that has a paid ticket. So we track that, and at the end of the year, I pull out all of our internal meetings, anything external that is there, a meeting or a wedding or anything in the Farm Bureau Center is in that number.
I was just curious. Thank you. It just
Sure.
gives a better proportion. And when you're talking with the concert series planner about the bathrooms, remember we discussed trash?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
I do.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Underwood?
Good evening, Ms. Jolliffe. How are you?
I'm good.
I
Thank
want
you.
to say first, thank you for all your cooperation during the fair and all the events that you have. I think Mr. Whiteman is, and your staff have a great relationship, and I think it just shows a true partnership. So we certainly appreciate all that the metal event brings to my district in particular. So I'm very glad it's there, and certainly here to work with you and do anything that we can to make it better. So thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have any, except when you have an opportunity, would you get us the transient occupancy tax numbers?
I would be happy to, and I can also, um, I don't mind at all. I'll give you the hard copies of this report tonight because it's got the trends, and that way you have it in hand as well.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Thank you very much. And that's key because that money is supposed to go towards tourism, which is one of the things the state fair is supposed to help us with tourism. So, and we'll talk offline about any other building you'd like to do at the fair or we'd like to have you do. Okay,
Sure.
thank you very much. All right, next is appointments. Mr. Black, have you had an opportunity for the planning
Yeah.
commission?
Yes, I do. I actually, I do have a person I would like to appoint. I would like to appoint Richard Williams to the Planning Commission.
Richard Williams, is there a second for Mr. Williams?
Second.
Mr. Black is motioning Richard Williams. Mr. Seeley seconds. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. The Board of Zoning and Appeals, the BZA, Mattapanai, I'm going to make a motion for Mr. Durante Rollins to continue. If I could have a second, please.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Thomas, seconded by Mr. Black and Mr. Seeley. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. And that motion carries unanimously too. Community Policy and Management Team. We have a representative that was on there. Mr. Parton?
I was going to say, it says she's willing to continue, and I was going to make a motion that we reappoint Macine Williams.
That's what I was looking for. Thank you, Mr. Seeley. Is there a second for Ms.
Second.
Williams? Okay, the motion's made by Mr. Seeley, seconded by Mrs. Long. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. Consent agenda items. Is there anything any board member would like to pull off the consent agenda? Remembering that item B was something we discussed before about creating a restricted fund from the balance we had last year. So anything anyone would like to pull off? Item
I am sort of curious as to why B is not on the, in our regular discussion instead of on the consent agenda.
item B?
B, the um,
Oh, when we discussed it,
restricted reserves.
yeah, when we discussed it at our last meeting,
Mhm.
it was decided then that we would just put it on the consent agenda rather than doing it at that meeting. If you would like to pull it off the consent agenda for more discussion, we can do that.
I think I'd like just a review of it, make sure nothing's changed between our last meeting and this meeting.
Okay. Mr. Cully? Oh, you're already there. Excellent. Would
Wonderful.
you give us a review of agenda item B again?
I don't have all of the,
That's-
I didn't bring my packet, but we didn't change anything from what you asked us to do at the last board meeting. That's why we put it on consent. So, you know, I was watching and that was the board's consensus was reserve half of it for public safety, capital. And then we had identified all those other uses for the money that, are still there, hadn't gone away. So no, we just did what you asked us to do and put it on consent, which is what we thought, you know, everybody was in agreement last time.
I just wanted to, I feel better knowing that there haven't been any other requests or suggestions that have come in before we.
I wouldn't tell you there are
Consider it.
requests, but no, it,
They were too late,
somebody
right?
always wants money, but no, we just put in front of you what basically you agreed to at the last meeting, but said put on consent to vote on this time.
Okay, then I'm fine with it being on consent. Thank you.
And to make sure, Mrs. Smith, it's 2.6 million even and change.
Not slightly less.
Yeah, 3,000 less.
2,597,251.
All right. Any other questions on agenda item B? If there's no questions, that motion would be in order to approve consent agenda A through H.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Underwood, seconded by Mr. Seeley to approve the consent agenda as presented, items A through H. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. That motion also carries unanimously. Mr. Cully, would you like to do agenda item number 7A, which is the software purchase for finance? Gee, Mr. Cully, you look so different now.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I stand before you because we have been in conversations with a company in regards to assisting with some of the budget preparations. Currently, for the Excel file preparation, I spent 42 hours for compiling the data to Excel files from what the departments give me. I spent 76 hours and am not complete yet. Creating the budget book last year, I spent 153 hours of my time. And so the total spent on just the budget alone, just for me, was 271 hours. This company actually assists with compiling the data. It provides a more collaborative tool for the departments to enter their information and allows for them to have real-time values from the Keystone system of what's in, what has been paid, and things of that sort. So it's all in that one centralized location. It also allows for an online budget book to be present on our website. Once we build it at one time, we can modify it as much as needed, and it allows for constituents, citizens, and you guys to access our financial documents real time because it uploads every time a check is being paid. So you'll be able to see what's actual versus what was budgeted and see a comparison. It provides for all type of templates and financial analyzing tools that we may be able to use. In fiscal year 21, our then chairman, Mr. Underwood, asked all department heads to provide goals. And what my first goal was to create a more strategic budgeting and planning measurement. This is a tool that would allow for that. The use of OpenGov, the vendor, would prepare an online budget book and would provide quite a few benefits. Once we build a template, it can be set and used and modified year after year. The data is in the budget builder module, and then it will automatically flow to this online document as spoken. Minimal updating would be required on my part and my staff's part. Additionally, this is the current GFOA's preference of an online budget document, and it would make the county more attainable to achieve the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, which of course is another one of the awards that I strive to achieve. When we are fully implemented on the current financial system Keystone. The thought was that the preparation of the budget would take place in that budget module. Currently, I use several Excel spreadsheets to prepare and consolidate departmental and CIP budgets. While each department would have the ability to put the information in Keystone in its current state, I would still have to export everything into Excel, create additional spreadsheets to balance the budget, and then produce the budget document myself. So even if we are using what we currently have, I wouldn't have to per se create the Excel files. It would just take 42 hours from my current 271 hours. The quote that I have for this services for professional services deployment would be $15,000 for this current fiscal year, as well as the software service for this year would be $34,375. So a total for this current fiscal year would be $49,375. And I currently have that money in my audit line item that I could pay for this fiscal year because we switched auditors and the amount's a bit different. To sign the contract, we would have to sign the contract on a term of 17 months, which would mean that we would have to commit to next year's amount as well. The annual cost of the software would be $82,500.
After this 49,
Right.
82.5, because that
Right.
includes maintenance and all the other things that go along with.
Right.
Okay.
But also for the deployment services for next year, there would be an additional $58,710. So my cost for this fiscal year would be $49,375.
Mm-hmm.
My cost for next fiscal year would be $141,210. So while I told you a way that I could pay for this fiscal year, I also have a way to potentially pay for some of next fiscal year. We received information from the local assistance and tribal consistency funds, which is another part of ARPA funding. The county would receive a total of $100,000. Fiscal year 22 allocation would be $50,000. Fiscal year 23 allocation would be another $50,000. And they have said that this money can be used for any governmental purposes other than a lobbying activity. So the request would be for an additional $41,210 in the usage of the ARPA funds that we would receive. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. You present a compelling case. Questions for Mrs. Smith at this time, Mr. Underwood?
I have none, Mr. Chairman. I just think it's important that we've been late with getting budgets done and getting entries, and I think we need to ensure that we do things in a efficient and expedient manner, and this is a way to make us more efficient. So I definitely think it's warranted and definitely needed.
Ms. Long?
It sounds like a wonderful program. My question is the second year amount. What about year 3, 5, 10?
So
is it fixed? Do we enter into a contract or?
So the contract that we would be entering into now would be for 17 months. Any years afterwards would need to be negotiated. However, the 82.5 would be the definite floor. So it would be 82.5 plus any inflation added to it.
Mr. Seeley?
I'm just looking at the hours that get spent. I mean, that's all.
And
I
I'm sorry,
Go
but
ahead.
I would say that's just me. So even
Right.
after I do what I have to do, it goes to Mr. Cully. Even for every other department, they have to do their own budget now, and they're asking for reports to compare to what they've spent in previous years and things of that sort. So that's just 271.
I'm just saying that's a lot of hours for you. If this is just your hours, I can't imagine what everybody else's is. So if you start to add that up, I mean so
it's
we're looking at
It's
almost
6.5
adding a
weeks of her
person.
time.
Right, we're almost talking
15%
about
of the year, but the budget's pretty important. So
The issue, all right.
I mean, 15% is what we're talking about.
what's 15% of our budget.
15% of the hours of a typical work week.
Right.
My
That's
only,
just
my
from
only
one
fear
person.
is that doing it the way we've done it kind of, I mean, many times Mr. Cully can pull something off his head because you've been doing it for so long, but you also had to go through all these numbers and they stick. I guess that's a huge advantage. Yeah. Anyway, that's I just wanted to put it in context. 2,080 hours is a typical work year. Right. We're talking about 15% of our time, but at the same time, the budget is pretty important and pretty large, and
then there
a pretty large portion of the role.
That's probably the most important thing for all of us to do. But the other benefit and part of the compelling case she presents is this automatically, or that's my question when I get to it, but this almost automatically gets put back out on the web so everybody can see it in real time.
Yes, sir.
And that's a big benefit for transparency. If a hacker would like to make a donation to our thing, I'm going to welcome them. But that's part of the whole thing. Mr. Seeley, were you done?
I was just going to say, in the environment that I work in, tools are actually where we're striving to get to, because the error that we're seeing with the amount of hours that it's taken to do some of these projects is going up and up and up, and the amount of manual time that you have to do that is not there. So the trend is to go to a tool that helps everybody and gives you Mr. Culley the ability to give us a real number off of a laptop rather than off the top of his head. So I just see that the trend is going this way, and I think this will help.
Mr. Black, did you want to add something?
No, I think it's just something that's worthy that we need to do.
Mr. Forehand, were you finished? Okay. Then my one question was about the real-timeness. Once we make changes, you're actually uploading that data.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so there is a process. So it's not really real time.
Yes, sir.
But it's as close to real time as we're going to get.
So the software actually links to our current Keystone. So everything that is in the Keystone system, it would be able to be uploaded real time as it's uploaded into Keystone onto our website.
Think of two things. Budget preparation is one piece of this software. The other is this transparency piece, which is this interface back to your ERP, which is Keystone, which they can do. So when we process checks every month, you get your list in your board packet, and that stuff then is in the Keystone system. There's a daily connection between the softwares. And so when you're looking at it online, you can get in and look, or you want to look, county administrator, and you go, vehicle supplies. You can click that detail and see, you can see various details, and it's basically live data where it's going, connecting back to Keystone to see what those are, not stagnant data that's, if you follow on, there's some sort of connection.
I totally understand what you're saying, and that's
budget's prepared. That's a different.
Yeah, that's fine.
Once it's approved and your new budget starts, then this software is out there. We've spent this much in August, and we spent this much in December or whatever. It gives you a portal. You'd have your quarterly reports because you'd have your report any given time.
It would be there. Yeah, and that's the point is, real time is when I make a change and it automatically gets in here.
That's my understanding.
That's not really real time because there's some sort of update process that may be daily, but it's as close to real time as we're going to get without having a real system.
Right.
And that's the point. So when I look at data on the web, it may be the latest and greatest data without an upload for today.
Yes.
But it's much better than what I've got now, because I've got to call you and you've got to go through 14 spreadsheets and figure out a number.
Right.
That's the really big benefit of having a system like this. Now, it'll tie into everything.
Mm-hmm.
So all the budget categories we work with, whatever business unit we're working with in the budget, then will be reported to this.
Yes.
Live, almost in real time.
And I guess I'm sorry, I need to apologize because I honed in on the fact that it was so much about the budget, because of course it would be saving me quite a bit of time because some of that stuff will be alleviated from this process. I did not express the fact that one of the other key selling points is that it provides for so much transparency for the county as well.
Right, and that was, definitely another benefit, so that's great. Okay, yes, ma'am.
Does this contract include training and maintenance and technical support and all the good stuff that comes with it?
Yes, ma'am.
I think we should move forward with this, would be my feeling. What's the process in
Was that
doing
your
so?
motion?
Yes, that could be my motion.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Mrs. Long and seconded by Mr. Underwood to move forward with the purchase of software for finance. And the amounts,
$49,375.
$49,375, which will come from the finance director's
Keystone's up. You
line item.
Yes.
Okay,
And that will be February 1st payment, and then $141,210, which would be the prepayment for fiscal year
'cause
20.
we've got to commit for both years. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That is Mrs. Long's motion. That's Mr.
my
Underwood's second.
Yep.
There was some unreadiness with Mr. Forehand.
No, just a question. Is this
Question.
something we plan to use for this current budget cycle?
Yes, we're going to
Okay.
run a parallel.
We're not going to take 12 to 14 months to get trained on it like we have Keystone and things like that.
Well, there's two different things.
I mean, I'm not being a naysayer or anything, but
It's not a whole ERP. So
Okay.
Right.
it basically is pulling all of the finance information out. So this budget module where you prepare the budget is just easier than what we're doing. Even if it takes some somewhat training, we believe we'll be able to implement it pretty smoothly.
Okay.
So the goal is for me to actually send them. I've sent them the chart of accounts when they were trying to work on getting a quote for me, so they could see how complex our chart of accounts was. So while I have been working in the Excel spreadsheets currently, putting all the information in from all the department heads, compiling all the information for both expenditures and revenues for all of the funds, I will then send them those spreadsheets, and they will create this software that and upload all of the Excel spreadsheets into there and set it up for us.
And this is a little different, Mr. Forehand. It's not us buying a software package and installing it and running ourselves. This is software as a service.
Yes.
So it's all going to be hosted by somebody else. We're going to provide them the data to get it set up. So realistically, and I used to be in the ERP world, which is loads of fun. A year worth of training would be a great thing. We consider that a win.
Absolutely.
But the reality is, we're just going to, have this data available based on what somebody else is doing to set up.
Mhm.
So we're just going to be end users without doing any of the programming and all
Yes.
that.
So that's what that 15,000 and the 58,710, that portion of it, that's what that is for them to get it all set up and running.
all right. I'm just
Skeptical, I understand.
skeptical because every time we buy, and y'all have heard me say this before, we dump a lot of money into software to make us more efficient, and then we need more software to be more efficient, and then we
Well,
need more software to be more efficient.
That's a good point. In this particular case, we
So-
didn't buy all the software we could have from Keystone.
That's correct.
So
And
there are-
it's not just finance. It's
Absolutely.
You got to remember, Mr. Forehand, that other departments, cause an issue sometimes when we're trying to get things in order to do the budget, that sometimes they are handicapped because other people haven't been up to date. So it causes a delay in what she's trying to do.
sure.
This way, we'll give her an opportunity to have all the information readily available.
So you can
And-
see that they haven't done what they're trying to do.
right.
Yes.
Instead of it being a mystery, you can actually see that the sheet is blank.
Right, because you'll see running time now in
Okay.
entries.
But what's better now though is
There'll be big holes.
yeah, you'll have the transparency
Right.
to be able to see
say.
what their actual budget number is versus what they budgeted for. Because we're a month or two away from the budget. We don't have any actual budget numbers for this fiscal year. We'll be working with actual numbers from a year ago, and
this
then
is
we'll
gonna-
be budgeting based on what was requested.
And this software is going to allow us to, in December, to see actual budget
We
numbers.
would see what they spend up to date.
Yes, sir. You would see all the expenditures. Because it pulls everything out of Keystone. Like I can tell
Right.
you what we've spent.
Just
This
that,
will be
just that, and the fact is worth $80,000 to me. Cause it's gonna.
I'm just disappointed the much more expensive software can't show us what we spent readily.
We did not buy much more expensive software.
Okay. Keystone was pretty damn expensive.
No, it's not.
Or
No,
it costs a lot of money. It may not be,
Right,
Okay.
it costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
Keystone
Okay.
is the low end of ERPs. We could sell you some for like $3 or $4 million, and that's a lot of money. All right, again, unless you want to jump in and be part of the motion now. Mrs. Long made the motion. Mr. Underwood made the second. Mr. Forehand's extremely happy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Will that be ready for the budget work session we have scheduled in March? I'm just kidding.
No.
Oh, you're not? Okay.
No. So with this, we will sign the contract tomorrow and be ready to start boots on the ground February 1st. So I don't know what exactly I'll have for you come March, but he will then have all of my spreadsheets to compile those.
And your chart of accounts includes everything that the county provides money for, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Every business unit, I don't know what we call them, but
Mhm.
each business unit or department is in there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Closed session.
7:05. I was going to try to sneak in Major Mosier, but I guess we'll do Major Mosier right after we come back. It's a short closed meeting, right? It's a short closed meeting. He may be more than 5 or 10 minutes. I'm sorry, Major. You're after the public hearings, but I'll try to squeeze you in as quickly as possible. Mr. Seeley, we're going to try to take a break and go into
Mr.
closed
Chairman.
meeting right now. Yes, sir.
He's not Major Mosier anymore. Just to correct the record there.
It's like Haley's Comet. It's been Haley's Comet all my life, and now it's Halley's Comet. Sheriff Mosier, if you will forgive me, we will get to you right after the public comments and things. Thank you for correcting that, Mr. Forehand. I'll expect you to do that every time. But I appreciate it. Mr. Seeley, you've got a motion for us to go into closed meeting?
Yes, sir. I move that this board convene in closed meeting pursuant to the consultation with legal counsel and contract exemption under sections 2.2-3711.A.8 and A.29 of the Code of Virginia for consultation with the county attorney and discussions with staff regarding the terms of a contract relating to an economic development project in the Reedy Church District where the discussion in open session would adversely affect the bargaining position and negotiating strategy of the board.
Is there a second to Mr. Seeley's motion?
second.
Mr. Forehand makes a second. Discussion on the motion on readiness. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. That motion also carries unanimously. The board will be in closed meeting and will make every attempt to be back at 7:30 for public comments. We stand closed meeting. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will reconvene. The closed session is over. Mr. Seeley, would you give us a motion to come out of closed meeting?
Yes, sir. I move that the Caroline County Board of Supervisors certifies that to the best of each board member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempt from the opening meeting requirement by Virginia law were discussed in closed meeting to which this certification applies, and only such public business matters which were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the board.
Is there a second to the command of closed meeting? Ms.
Second.
Long? Mr. Forehand, motion made by Mr. Seeley, seconded by Mr. Forehand to come out of closed meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. That motion carries unanimously. That takes us to our 7:30.
Certification.
Mr. Forehand, do you certify that only those matters we discussed?
I so certify.
Mr. Black?
I so certify.
Mr. Seeley?
I so certify.
Mrs. Long?
So certified.
Mr. Underwood? And I certify as well. Thank you, Mr. Seeley. We will now move to our public comments portion of the agenda. Public comments, as you know, are a courtesy provided by the board to allow any citizen to speak on any matter that is not a public hearing. We have a couple of public hearings later. If you'd like to speak on those, please wait for that time. But at this point in time, anyone who would like to make a comment, please come forward. State your name and your voting district.
Good evening, my friends. My name is Bobby Hebert, and I was raised in Caroline County, but I'm no longer a member of the Caroline County. But you guys own a big chunk of my heart. Every year I come back to Caroline County to MC the Caroline County Polar Bear Plunge. And I know you guys are aware of it. I already heard you mention it here tonight. Last year, citizens of your county threw themselves into an icy lake. Now, these are warm-hearted citizens. They raised over $43,000. And so what I'm going to ask you for your support tonight, because this money goes to work right here in your community. And it's groups like St. Mary's Church, Pause for Purple Hearts, Caroline Promise, Caroline County YMCA, the Ladysmith Ruritan Club, Caroline County Habitat for Humanity, Rice Chapel. This year, the plunge takes place on February 4th at Lake Landor. The festivities will kick off at 10 o'clock, and then the plunge happens at noon. So here's my request to the board. I would love each of you to consider promoting this both privately and publicly on your Facebook posts, any way you can. You're the leaders of this community, and your citizens have set a high mark for themselves to beat with 43,000 last year that is going to go back to the community. Anyway, that's the end of my serious comments, but I had a few other comments that I need to tell you in the character of Frostbite, who will be the host of this year's Caroline County Polar Bear Plunge. My friends, you too need adventure. You need excitement. You need... We have treasure at the Caroline County Polar Bear Plunge. There will be music, my friends, yes, there will be... A certain gentleman named Alan Parton will be thrown into an icy lake. If you pay me $500 now for the polar plunge, I will throw him into an icy lake. I jest. I will do it for $10. There's a 2-for-1 deal. I'll also throw in Jeff Black. No. Seriously, I've got 35 seconds. You can't miss this. This is the year that we do it. And I'm going to tell you there's prizes also. Come dressed as a pirate. I will be giving out a prize for the best pirate. This year, my friends, we're the Buccaneers of generosity. We're not taking, we're bringing. In fact, we are bringing the booty. So come on. Come on out. Caroline County, the Polar Bear Fund, February 4th. You don't want to miss this after 2 years of COVID restrictions. 3 o'clock, I'm done. My friends, thank you.
Thank you, sir. You sure put the pressure on the next person who'd like to come and speak. Is there anyone else who would like to speak as part of the public comment section? Is there anyone else who would like to speak as part of the public comment section? Last call, anyone like to speak as part of public comment? Hearing none, we will declare the public comment appropriately closed. Thank you, sir. We'll now move to public hearings. We have two public hearings scheduled. The first one is an ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance for fences, walls, and hedges. Mr. Fincham, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, your first public hearing tonight is TXT 01-2022, which is an ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance of Caroline County to repeal and replace Article 15, Section 2, Paragraph 1. The current ordinance limits fences in the required front yard to 36 inches in height. Most fencing materials these days actually comes in heights of 42 to 48 inches in height. The purpose of the amendment, as we previously discussed with the board, is to bring our fencing requirements for front yards more into consistency with what is generally available on the market for fencing materials, and allow the construction of fences in the front yard up to 4 feet in height. In addition to that, side and rear yards could be 8 feet in height. Current limitation is 7. That's it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Mr. Fincham. And as noted in our board packet, if there is a fence of 8 feet, it's going to require a building permit.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Fincham at this time? Thank you, Mr. Fincham. We will, at this point, declare the public hearing open for text 01-2022. Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone who'd like to speak regarding this matter? Anyone who'd like to speak? Hearing none, the public hearing is declared closed. How does the board wish to dispose of this matter?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Seeley?
we discussed this at our last board meeting. I don't know if Mr. Fincham's got any additional comments, but if I had to build a 36-inch fence, I'd have to break out my saw or a pair of bolt cutters because you just can't buy it. And I get it. We need to look forward and make this easy. Oh yeah, my dog said 36 inches is nothing. I don't know, Mr. Fincham, do you have anything you want to add?
No, sir.
Because I would make a motion to approve this text amendment as presented.
Second. Motion's made by Mr. Seeley, seconded by Mrs. Long. And is that Mr. Black or Mr. Forehand?
Both of us.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Black, Mr. Forehand, and Mrs. Long. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Fincham. Agenda item number 5 is a special exception 04-2022 for Mid-Atlantic Materials, care of Barden Inc., the owner applicant. Mr. Fincham.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, your next public hearing, SPX 04-2022, Mid-Atlantic Materials Incorporated, care of Barden Inc., owner and applicant. They're requesting a special exception permit in accordance with Article 17, Section 13, and Article 4, Section 5.3 of the Caroline County zoning ordinance. The subject property contains in total approximately 349 acres. Property is located at 18,173 Tidewater Trail in the Port Royal District. 2030 Comprehensive Plan designates this area as agricultural preservation and resource-sensitive overlay district. The request is to amend Condition 7 of a previously approved conditional use permit to remove a 100-foot buffer on the eastern property line adjacent to property owned tax map 4-A-1, and which would also provide access from that property to the existing commercial entrance on the aggregate site. In 1979, a conditional use permit was issued on the subject property to Solite Corporation. That property was never developed by Solite, and it was subsequently purchased in the early 2000s by the current owner, and the mining operation commenced consistent with the 1979 permit conditions. Since that time, a special exception permit for Clark's Cut 2 for sand and gravel operation was also approved by the Board of Supervisors and was later amended to potentially allow interparcel access between Clark's Cut 2 and the current operation by Mid-Atlantic Materials, which has a existing commercial entrance constructed to VDOT standards and is currently in place. Mid-Atlantic Materials, after Clark's Cut 2 amendment was approved, did not come in and request a comparable amendment at that time, which would have allowed that interparcel access between Clark's Cut 2 and their property. The property owners have been in discussion. I believe Mr. Sneed is here this evening, related to that connection. And aggregate is before you tonight requesting the amendment to the previous condition 7 of the CUP to allow the elimination of that buffer. The Planning Commission forwarded this with a recommendation of approval with a limitation that the buffer or extraction be kept 50 feet away from the abutting property, and therefore they reduced the requirement from 100 feet to 50 feet in their recommendation to the board. You have additional comments as well as this other CUPs in your staff report, and I'll address any questions the board may have.
All righty, Mr. Fincham. Any questions of Mr. Fincham at this point in time? No questions of Mr. Fincham?
We do have the applicant here
Yeah,
to speak.
the applicant's here.
Applicant is here. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so
I'm gonna open the public hearing and allow the applicant to speak. So we'll declare the public hearing for special exception 04-2022 to be opened, and have a presentation first from the applicant before anyone else speaks.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you again. I'm going to just kind of paraphrase something that is in your package, but the purpose of this is our company is requesting approval for a modification to condition number 7 of the Hayfield Special Exception, which reads, a 100-foot buffer zone will be required from all adjacent property lines. This includes the land adjacent to Route 17 that will be widened. The modification request, if we're here before you tonight, is to remove the 100-foot buffer requirement on the eastern property boundary adjacent to the Clark's Cut 2 property, as both properties are compatible uses and have valid special exceptions for sand and gravel extraction. Of note, Clark's Cut 2 special exception does not contain a condition like the one that we're asking to have modified. Secondly, with the removal of the 100-foot buffer requirement, the contiguous Clark's Cut property can access the existing commercial entrance at our property, which on our site, I'm sure you know, we have a very nice stone entrance with white fencing around it, turn lanes, and the things that we need. Granting this request will allow Clark's Cut 2 to access the commercial entrance at Hayfield and will satisfy condition number 11 in Special Exception 02-2015 granted to Clark's Cut back in December of 2015. Some of the benefits of this is we have come to an agreement with Clark's Cut 2, but the benefits of doing this provide access to Clark's Cut 2, and it allows to satisfy that condition of his approval for sand and gravel mining. The biggest plus to this is it eliminates the need for the additional access point on Route 17 that would access Clark's Cut 2, just like our access accesses Hayfield. Another benefit would be an enhancement for the motoring public and safety with eliminating an additional entrance within a couple thousand feet of the Hayfield entrance, which would carry truck traffic. The connection of the screening berms under this proposal and our agreement is what's been presented is there would have been a break in the screening berm along Route 17. That screening berm now will be continuous from our entrance, all of the frontage on Route 17, including Clark's Cut, and it would also head to the river, which would give complete view shed protection for the motoring public. It also allows, since we have two contiguous mining operations, it allows for us to reclaim our property, the Hayfield site, the Clark's Cut property. It allows us to create a nice landform that when we're finished, it will not look like a big berm in the center of the property. It would allow us to do reclamation with concerted reclamation between the two properties. And when we're done, the properties look more natural and it'll give us a better and finer end product when all of these operations are completed. We in the original staff report, we got a suggested condition that we really liked, and it served all the purposes of what we're trying to accomplish. As part of the process, the Planning Commission, as Mr. Fincham just mentioned, they inserted a sentence into the suggested condition that said no sand and gravel extraction permitted in the required setback of 50 feet. Well, they're extinguishing our 100-foot setback, and they are now putting a 50-foot setback in which no mining activities can take place. I'm not sure why they added this particular language, and it kind of inhibits our ability to, whether this was one big parcel in different phases or it happens to be a contiguous mining site to our mining site, it inhibits our ability to get a final reclamation landform that would enhance both of the properties when the mining has been completed. It was never anticipated in our agreement that we would mine out the property line. There is a property line through there. We never planned to mine out the property line between the parcels. The property line is agreed to. It is going to stay dry land at which you could run a road around it or you can travel between the parcels, but we had no intentions of mining the property line out. However, we did have the intention, an agreement with Mr. Sneed, that property line would be lowered as part of our mining, and our reclamations would all meet at the property line, and it would look neat and orderly. It would flow better, and when the property is all complete, aesthetically, I think the whole project is going to look more natural in the state in which I think this board would like it to look. It's a very common practice to use reclamation grades, whether you're between properties, between phases on a particular property. All of the other setbacks on this particular site will remain as they are now. We're only asking for that 100-foot buffer between the Hayfield property and Clark's Cut to be removed for orderly mining and for reclamation purposes. We have asked for the elimination of the 100-foot buffer, which it looks like we're going to be granted. And I would also ask that you consider the elimination of the 50-foot setback. We would ask that you consider changing the suggested condition language back to the original staff recommended language and eliminate the part that reads no sand and gravel extraction permitted in the required setback of 50 feet. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And just for the record, you didn't state your name at the beginning.
I apologize.
That's
I
okay.
got ahead of myself. I'm Tim Bavard with Aggregate Industries Wholesome, and I'm the land manager.
Okay, would you spell Bavard just to make sure?
It's Bevard.
Thank you very much. If you'll have a seat, we're going to continue the public hearing, and then the board may ask you to come back for questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this matter?
Good evening. My name is Len Dameron, and I am the neighbor of, I believe it's referred to as Clark's Cut 2 on the other side. And I would just like to speak in favor of, I don't particularly know all the details in the language, but I would just like to speak in favor of whatever it would take so that we do not need another construction entrance, commercial entrance, in order to proceed with the sand and gravel mining operation. I just think that it makes good sense from a traffic perspective to keep all of their operations. I'm in favor of what they're planning to do and what they're proposing to do. And if we could eliminate a commercial entrance, I think it would be better for everybody.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone else who'd like to speak regarding this matter? Anyone else who'd like to speak? Hearing none, the public hearing is declared closed. Board members at this time have questions of the applicant or Mr. Fincham. Mr. Underwood?
Yeah, Mr. Fincham. I believe the special exception was in 2015 is what we said.
The original special exception for Mid-Atlantic Materials was 1979. Yeah. So it sat vacant, dormant,
right? I mean,
until the early 2000s. The adjacent property, referred to as Clark's Cut 2, had a special exception. I'm going to test my memory now. In the late 2000s, and there was an amendment, I believe it was 2015, that allowed, if they could work out a deal with Mid-Atlantic, allowed them to go through Mid-Atlantic's property and access the existing entrance in lieu of installing their own commercial entrance onto Route 17.
Yeah, Calvin was on the board for at least 8 years ago.
So the original use permit for the property before you tonight was 1979.
If I'm correct, then the part of the rationale for the 100-foot buffer and this special exception condition was that traffic control? Was it line of sight for
visual buffer to abutting properties or neighboring properties? Okay, so that 100-foot buffer in this case on the east side was put in place before Clark's Cut
ever started,
got their special exception permit for a sand and gravel operation. Right. So you have the two sand and gravel operations right next to each other with this buffer in between. And in the Clark's Cut, there was also a buffer requirement that the buffer along 17 and along that eastern property line be extended as well.
So part of the rationale then seems to me that since you have two like entities facing, that you want the buffer then to be reduced. Is that part of the rationale?
I think that's part of the rationale, yes. And I think that's
nobody has said that, but
that's stated in the application.
Yeah. Right.
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have right now, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Underwood. I'll come back to Mrs. Long in a second. Mr. Forehand, do you have any questions at this time?
Mr. Fincham, on the map, just so I'm crystal clear, the where it says fence line buffer didn't remove, that's that's the 100-foot, that's going away.
Fence,
That's what they're asking for.
yes, where it says fence line buffer to be removed, that is the request.
The green V, that's still to be constructed.
Yes.
And
yes,
that's not being asked to remove. Right
no,
there.
sir. That is a requirement of the conditions related to Clark's Cut. So that has to be installed.
And underneath the M and mine traffic flow, that tree line or whatever, it's hard to tell if is that already a berm? Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Black? Mr. Seeley?
Yeah, I want to go back to the 100-foot buffer. So the 100-foot buffer is currently on Hayfield.
That is correct.
That wasn't part of the conditions for Clark's Cut too?
Clark's Cut had no buffer requirement adjacent to the west, adjacent to Mid-Atlantic, to Hayfield.
But what about on the next property owner? As you come down 17?
He's got two buffers.
Yeah, there is a buffer requirement, and I think Mr. Forehand alluded to it, that green line that's shown on Clark's Cut is a buffer that's required to be installed.
Is it 100 foot?
Yes, it's the same standard as the buffer requirement for Hayfield.
So then explain they can mine within, what's the 50-foot mining distance?
The 50.
That's changing from Hayfield to Clark's Cut.
Okay. Clark's Cut does not have a setback, a 50-foot setback to Hayfield. Okay. So their GDP that was approved allows and shows a layout, actually allows them to perform land disturbance right up to the property line with Hayfield. So there's no buffer or setback between Hayfield and
because there was already a buffer there. Because
Right.
there was already a buffer there, so they didn't need another 100-foot buffer.
Right. And again, it's a similar use. It's the same use. It's a sand and gravel operation versus a sand and gravel operation. So when it was approved, there's a buffer requirement along 17 and along the east side of the Clark's Cut property line to provide that visual buffer to any properties to the east of Clark's Cut.
So the large group of trees that we see were existing screening buffer to the right of that big placard up there. Are those going to be eliminated?
At Clark's Cut, next to Clark's Cut, or in
Correct.
between?
Well, it's
Yeah.
between.
Yeah. Those are in, the majority of those trees are actually on Hayfield's property. They would be within the 50-foot setback that the Planning Commission recommended to you.
But you said there was no setback between the two different properties on that boundary.
There's no setback on
There's no
Clark's
setback
Cut.
on Clark's
right.
Cut.
But the other guy does
But
have
currently
100-foot setback.
Hayfield has the 100-foot buffer. So there's trees within that 100-foot buffer
Right.
between the Hayfield active mining area and their property line with Clark's Cut.
This thing,
That-
you want to remove those trees, right? This is their buffer.
They want to remove.
You want to move them down to 50, that's what.
They want to
all, well,
remove,
then that's-
they
yeah,
want the
okay.
buffer eliminated that would allow
No.
them to expand their sand and gravel extraction
Right.
into that 100-foot area currently identified as a buffer.
That's a buffer. Correct.
Benjamin, I think to be clear, on our screens where it says existing screening berms, at the end of the word berms, there are some trees. Those trees are part of the 100-foot buffer.
What's there in place now is part of the buffer along Route 17, yes.
But-
That
but
buffer
they're wide.
continues for their entire property line between Clark's Cut and Hayfield.
Yes, and it will be extended from their property line across Clark's Cut when Clark's Cut is developed. So you'll have a continuous berm along Route 17.
So
We're
as,
not talking about, why do we keep going back? I'm talking about those trees that go from mine traffic flow just above there, there's a shaded area and there's
To the
a whole
north, yes, sir.
row of trees.
Yes, sir.
What,
They want to take those out. Yes, sir.
But there's basically mine to the left, mine to the right.
There are approved mines in
To
both
left or right?
properties. Yes, sir.
All right, not part of this application, but I have a sense that they're eventually going to be one company. If it was one company, would it make a difference?
There's still two separate special exceptions. So
Right,
the
right.
SE conditions run with with each parcel.
But
So
is
is-
the company doing the work? Is it all aggregate and industries doing all the mining?
I think it's my understanding that they
can
will
the
be doing
applicant
the
answer
work
that?
for Clark's Cut, but you need to pose that question directly to them.
Because if we don't remove the setback, then they'll literally be cut, then there'll be this 20 feet high thing with trees on top, and then it'll drop off and more.
Yes, you basically open up a mine road for access between the two properties.
Yeah, it'll just be a earthen berm that's, yeah, like a
For
giant
nothing.
hedgerow. That does nothing.
All right, I'm going to let Mrs. Long go. Mrs. Long?
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. I don't know if you could answer this or if the applicant has. He said he liked the wording from the planning commission about the 50 feet, but we're keeping 100 feet setback from the road on everything, right?
Yeah, the road, no change to the road. The
Right,
issue
right,
is
so some-
strictly that portion of the buffer along the Clark's Cut Sneed property line.
And Mr. Sneed did not have a setback at the time he got his permit from their property. So we're talking a total 100-foot buffer, part of it being the tree line and part of it being a piece of property that they haven't mined yet is on aggregate side.
Yes, it's
correct?
all on the aggregate side. Yes, sir.
So if
Yes,
they
ma'am.
don't own Mr. Sneed's property and they haven't finished mine on the other side, why are they talking to us about doing something on Mr. Sneed's property? Do they have
Yeah. I think that question is best posed to the two property owners. But this special exception permit only speaks to the land that is owned by Mid-Atlantic Materials. So to the extent there's an agreement, and the board previously told Mr. Sneed that's okay. So the board previously told Mr. Sneed, we'll let you get access if you can work out an agreement with Mid-Atlantic to get access to their existing commercial entrance, then you don't have to install your own commercial entrance. But there was no discussion at that time with Mid-Atlantic Materials about that access. Okay, that was left to be determined at a future date by the two applicants. Mid-Atlantic is here tonight with their amendment to that condition number 7, which would allow that previous approval that the board gave Mr. Sneed to give him the access to the existing commercial entrance, subject, and there's an agreement between those two parties.
Okay, but we're also talking about berms and setbacks with those
Yep.
also.
Yes, that would allow.
That includes both property owners.
No, the berm is entirely on.
No, I'm
this
talking
piece of
about the
property.
green. They're talking about putting in that berm, the green lines?
The green line has to be constructed in accordance with the conditions for Clark's Cut 2. So whenever there's a mining activity is proposed in Clark's Cut 2, the construction of that berm is the first thing that has to occur before they can start extraction.
Okay, so they're saying, so basically they're saying that they have an agreement with the property owner and they're going to do the berm and they're going to need a road to get through there to do the berm.
We don't care who does the berm, but when they come in for their final approval to begin mining that site, the first thing that will require them to do is to install that berm.
Okay.
Mr.
all right.
Finch. Oh, I'm sorry.
Excuse me. Well, I have no issue with the one entrance. That is great for citizens who drive the road. It's good for the property owners. That's fine. Have an issue with the berm. And I think my feeling, I need to talk to both property owners.
Mhm.
And it would be my feeling, and we can continue with questions, but that we defer this until we get more information. I'm very uncomfortable with property rights, not having heard from one property owner at all, and talking to someone who owns a neighboring property. It doesn't seem like it gives a clear picture. But I like the idea of having one entrance that's safe, it's clean, and you know, that we can probably work out. The other stuff, I think we need to talk about, and I'd like to talk to some people first. So
Okay.
my motion would be to defer. If anybody has any other questions, go ahead.
Hold that. I'm sorry. Can you hold that motion for 1 second? Let me see if Mr. Underwood had a question.
No, I could hold my comments if we defer to them.
Okay, Mr. Seeley, you had a question. You were going to hold.
I
yours.
will wait, but I'll talk to the applicant.
Okay.
And I'll second Mrs. Long's.
Give me 1 second, Mr. Fincham. Just to be clear, on this map, isn't there an access road just on the other side of the berm? Is the only road where it says existing plant entrance?
That is the commercial entrance to Hayfield,
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I mean, if I go right into that, can I make a right turn and go down a road? Isn't there a road already?
It doesn't run through to the Clark's Cut property.
But there is a road just on the other side of the berm.
There's an area that I think you could access through. Okay. I wouldn't call it a road yet.
Okay, thank you. I thought I had been there and seen it, but this is all right. Mrs. Long, you wanted to make a motion to defer?
She did.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Black, you had a question?
Yeah, I do. I just, Clay had drawn this, and it's a good point, Mr. Finch. Maybe you can ask it when they go down on the sand and gravel. When they like, the way Clay drew it, and it's very well done. It's like if you keep the buffer there,
yes,
you're gonna have 100 feet, the tower, because they're going down. You're gonna have 100 foot, and is that accurate?
I think
if we don't grant it, you're going to have one mine on one side, one mine on the other, and you're going to have this 100 foot.
The 100 foot is
with
actually
trees on top of it.
Yeah, the 100 feet's actually a width. Okay.
Yeah, but how high? Am I looking at a cliff?
Probably 20 feet, 10 to 20 feet at the most.
20 feet.
But I could get we can get a schematic for you, which I think indicates. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll try to clean it up, but that's pretty good.
Yeah. So,
all right, Mrs. Long, you were making a motion to defer.
I move to defer
our next board meeting.
to our next board meeting. Thank you.
Mr. Underwood, you were making a second, or was that?
I'll second.
Oh, Mr. Seeley was making a second. Okay, Mrs. Long wishes to defer for additional consultation. Seconded by Mr. Seeley. Discussion on the motion.
Yeah, I get one more discussion on this. Just really quickly, when we sent this to the planning commission, was there any arguments from people? Did you have any neighbors complaining?
No, there was no opposition.
And was when you do this, is there letters sent to the opposing?
Letters to abutting property owners, ad in the paper, the normal advertising process.
Okay.
Posting the property.
Okay.
All right. All the time. Because that berm isn't there right now. Yeah, but
Okay, no more discussion, all in,
Just one,
discussion on the motion?
I think it's prudent that we do talk to Sneed just to make sure he's aware of everything. And, you know, to avoid that situation. I don't think that's good for anybody, honestly. But if it's like I think it is, I'm okay with it. But I think it's prudent to confirm with both landowners.
Right. No,
Thank you, Mr. Forehand. So again, the motion to defer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay, and that the motion to defer was the next board meeting.
I can answer questions.
We're done now.
Mrs. Long, would you like to take this opportunity now?
You're a little late, Emmett. How about if we get together this week? You've got my number, same one I've had for 25 years, okay?
We're all here tonight.
Okay, well, after the meeting, I'll be glad to talk to you. We can get our questions answered, but we've already voted on this, so we're going to let it ride for tonight. Thank you, Emmett.
Okay. Agenda item number 6, which was Warren Bowserman, a rezoning, that has been deferred by the applicant. And the applicant was here, but that's been deferred at the request of the applicant. That takes care of agenda item number 6. Agenda item number 7 is the proposed purchase of body cameras for the sheriff's office, and that will be presented by Sheriff Mosier.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, it's certainly an honor to be here tonight as the sheriff to talk about this very important subject. What we're proposing and what's in front of you is the body cameras for the officers here at the sheriff's office. As I stated in the letter earlier this year, that one of our main goals this year is to be transparent and have accountability within the sheriff's office. And I believe those cameras can bring us to that point. Certainly, as you can tell, I'm really a proponent of this project, as I've been able to come up with half of the initial cost to a fund through the sheriff's office of $34,000 and $34,500 roughly to help offset the cost for the county for these body cameras. I think you have everything in front of you. I certainly would entertain any questions. I do thank several members of this board for helping me with this project. I know Mr. Underwood came to the sheriff's office, toured the sheriff's office, and had a lot of input and suggestions to help with the sheriff's office, and we appreciate him coming to the office and help us with that. And Mr. Thomas, and I appreciate him bringing this to the board as quickly as he has to get this resolved.
All right, thank you. Almost said it that time. Thank you, Sheriff Mosier. Board members at this time have any questions? Before us is the request for 47 body cameras. Final total was $304,820.
Over the 5-year.
That was the 5-year total. That was a 5-year total. Sheriff Mosier, this 5-year total is the contract you have to sign for 5 years. It's not a 1-year deal, and you say at the end of each year, or is...
No, sir. That's a 5-year contract that they have. The good thing about the 5-year contract is that after 3 years, the existing body cameras that we're purchasing will be replaced for free, and it's absolutely no fault warranty on the camera. So if one of them gets shot or we run over it by the car, they replace it for free.
Well, let's hope the former doesn't happen.
Well, they had one shot. That's why I mentioned that, and it was actually stopped the bullet, and they actually replaced it for free.
Actually, that's a good thing then.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. The first year cost is $65,964. Then it's $59,964 for the next year. So total is $304,000. Is there a reason why we should have to get 47? You've got 47 deputies. They all need a camera.
I really tried to nail that number down as low as I possibly could. And once I'm full staff, what I suspect we will be full staff in the very near future within the next couple months, that's the exact number that I would need. I tried to get it down lower because I thought it was a little high myself. And then we did the numbers, and that's exactly what we'll need.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Sheriff Mosier?
Resource officers,
Yes, sir.
do they wear the body cams?
Well, we're going to look at that issue for the school resource officers. I think there is some legislation about, whether or not they can wear them in the school or not. And of course, under Freedom of Information Act, none of that video would be subject to be released, because anything to do with juveniles, we cannot release it. We're a department of no record when it comes to juveniles, so that cannot be released.
All right, it's 5 or 6 deputies. That's all.
That is correct. Yes, sir.
How fast does something like this turn around? I don't see a.
Yeah, I actually asked that very question because I was concerned about the cost, and the representative said that they would probably come somewhere around June, and then you got 30 to 45 days to make a payment. So this would actually push it into the next budget year for the first initial payment.
So this is something we could put in the budget to start July 1?
Absolutely, yes, sir. The way I understand it, what he said, and we did a lot of negotiation with the vendor, even though it was under the state contract. We got a lot of perks on this contract because we had mentioned his top competitor and used that to leverage some extra help on this contract.
But don't you have to sign this contract now so that you'll get them in June, or?
Yes, sir. We would have to.
Okay.
I think y'all have to sign it. I cannot sign a contract. That's up to the board. I can't enter into contracts as a sheriff.
We approve a budget with a line item in it.
Yeah.
We approve the budget.
I think Mr. Cully would sign it.
With a line item in it. Is that something that we won't have to do now? We can wait till whenever we approve.
And I think what Sheriff Mosier's saying is we need to do it now to get the cost.
If you wait till they put it in the budget, then we would bring a contract back in July. It becomes next year's. I have no way to send a PO anywhere or sign anything unless you vote on something that gives me the authority. I can only spend $50,000 if it's budgeted. If it's not budgeted, I can't spend anything. So until you decide you want to do it, and then it's over $50,000, you all need to vote on it so that then I can sign for it.
But is it something that all the costs will come out in the next?
Not all. Well, yeah, part of it would be paid for in June. I mean, we have to. If he's starting to get equipment in June, it's not a July. Even if we paid it in July, it's a June 30th bill. The audit's going to stop that because it was received. But and most of this is data storage in the years moving forward. You're just paying for video is the largest file you can create.
And it's only the initial 64,000 is what we're talking about in this budget.
Correct.
And then it goes into the right. So in order to move this forward, we would need to approve the money for the first year's subscription, correct?
That's correct.
That we could, but our contract is going to be for 5 years, but we need to come up with the funding for the first 64 and then thereafter, correct?
Yes.
So we don't have
They're not
to
asking
come up
for
with the.
304,000.
Okay.
But I want to know who are we're looking at one vendor, and we went through this with the radio system. Yeah. We ended up with one vendor, and there were a lot of other options we could have had that had better capability and more ability for citizens. So how do we get, I understand this is state contract, so is Motorola. It was not the best deal for us.
Well, it is under state contract, which actually helps us with the procurement process. But the reason we were willing to entertain their bid was because we currently have WatchGuard in the cars. That is what this system used to be. It used to be called WatchGuard, and then Motorola bought it out.
They're both Motorola.
Yeah, well, WatchGuard wasn't. Motorola.
Now they're both Motorola.
Now they're both Motorola, but we have the WatchGuard in the cars. So what it does, and David was present during the presentation for all the technical aspects of it, but what it does is it combines both the car camera and the body mic camera together as one file. So instead of having two separate vendors, we'll have one vendor, which we already currently have 47 cameras in the cars, and we'll have 47 body cameras. And then when it uploads to the cloud, then those two files from the car and from the body camera will merge into one. They will find each other in the cloud, and they will become one file for evidential purposes, and it's easy to review the footage. And it also has the capability to be put into another cloud space where the Commonwealth Attorney would have access to that file, and they can pull it down and download videos as well. So it's a very robust system, and it was very impressive. David might be able to tell you more, but it's certainly going to save us from the server that we have now that needs to be replaced.
I think basically the simplest concept is it's a video recording of whatever incident there is that's in the cloud that not only the sheriff's office can access, but when there's some issue, the Commonwealth's Attorney's office can access it.
That's correct.
Without having permission from the sheriff's office?
No, we would have to drop it into his viewing box.
Okay.
So, but we have no problem. We have total transparency between us and the Commonwealth Attorney's office.
Okay, and we're only committing to $64,000 this year.
That's correct.
You got 30-some thousand, so we're gonna have to get 30,000 out of unencumbered balance to cover that.
Yeah, and then of course there's a $3,000 additional startup fee for a device that actually transfers the stuff. Another thing I did want to say though is that this system, since it's cloud-based, right now the deputies currently have to come back to the office. They literally let their car run so that the camera system's running, and then it downloads at the sheriff's office so that those videos can, and sometimes it takes up to an hour for those videos to download to the server in the sheriff's office. This will be done in the county. They don't have to come back to the sheriff's office. They can stay in their patrol areas, and it will be instantly uploaded through the cloud, and it will be encrypted information.
And their car data can also be loaded?
That's correct. This is not only for the body cameras, but it's also incorporated for the car cameras as well.
Mr. Chairman, because
all the same system.
I've knocked on the door to say you left your car running, and they say we're uploaded.
Exactly.
I'm ready, Mr. Underwood.
Mr. Chairman, I want to make a motion, but I'm just going to say that we just, if you recall, we voted tonight to put in a large sum of money into a public safety fund, reserve fund.
2.7 million?
2.5.
2.5 million?
And I think when we look at issues like this that come before us, that not only protect the citizens,
thank you, Mr.
but it also protects our law enforcement. It gives us an opportunity to provide some communication, open communication, and transparency. And with the climate in the country, anything that we can do to eliminate confusion is worth its weight in gold right now. So we can start building trust back between community and law enforcement. Community law enforcement is only going to work if the public has faith in the people who are paid to serve and protect them. This is a way for us to give people a sense of confidence. Mm-hmm. So I would motion that we would, if you want to take a motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'm ready, go right ahead.
I would make a motion that we provide the funds necessary to purchase body cams for the sheriff's office.
Second.
Okay, discussion on the motion?
We're renting everything, or are we purchasing and then subscribing to the cloud service?
They refurbish after 3
software
years.
This is basically, again, software as a service.
We're buying some GoPros and then we're paying for the software service?
We're actually renting the GoPros because they replace them every 3 years.
Every 3 years they replace them at no cost. But basically, even the company said that we're going to like a subscription type of cost so that they can realize their income versus debt and stuff of that nature. So basically, yes, we're paying for the service over a 5-year period. Yeah, and all the storage is also included. Unlimited storage.
I can't imagine it'd be unlimited forever, but yeah. Is it like after X number of years, days, months, it goes away?
It will be for 5 years. Because we have them under contract.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we don't have the ability to download those videos to our own storage device?
we will eliminate the server at the sheriff's office, but yes, we can download the videos from the cloud. Even though they're encrypted, we'll have the encryption key so that we can download those videos.
Because when you lose this 5 years, David, I mean, did they talk about what happens? Because when that goes away, it goes away. And the encryption key is not something you necessarily own, it's something you lease.
So basically, the videos have an expiration date. After a certain day, they roll off the server unless they're marked as evidence by the sheriff's office where they would be maintained indefinitely.
Right,
So-
because when someone gets stopped for a speeding ticket, the deputy gets out of their car, the camera's rolling, that occurrence goes without a hitch. That video gets uploaded, but since that video has no incident on it, after X number of days, weeks, months, whatever that time frame is, that can disappear.
Yeah, the Library of Virginia regulates all of that, and through the sheriff's office, we have to set up scheduled deletion dates of video. So because we do it now with the current server that we have, but generally a non-essential video is 60 days. You know, it could be something to hit the button.
But if there is an incident, you're going to flag it for evidence, and then it goes into
Like
a
a
court
D-
drawer somewhere, and
like
doesn't go away.
DUI could be 18 months,
Right.
you know, something like that.
Okay.
But if it came to that, I mean, there's only a smaller portion of videos active at any given time. So, and if they're at the end of the 5 years, theoretically, we could, Jeff, it's a great question. At the end of 5 years, we could go in there and download our videos that we need for evidential purposes and then move to another system.
And then you may want some for training.
Even for training.
All right,
Even
that
for
was
training,
the thing
yes,
we
sir.
said at the same time, training. We've
Yeah.
got a motion. No more discussion on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
One quick question.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
They have to hit the button and then it goes back X number of seconds.
They actually dock the body camera in a dock station in the car.
No, I mean, when they're having an interaction.
That has several triggers. If they cut the blue lights on, it automatically comes on.
Oh, really?
Yes, sir. And they can manually turn it on, but if they reach a certain speed, it automatically comes on. So there's a lot of different triggers that we have for control purposes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
and we set those
once
triggers.
in a while you hear about an incident where there's no video because the officer forgot to turn it on.
Yeah,
I mean,
in this video also, the body camera will serve as the mic. The biggest problem we have with the in-car cameras now is the microphone on their belt. They'll forget to turn it on or anything of that nature. This body camera that's attached to their body, when they turn their lights on, it comes on with the regular camera and it becomes the mic as well. So it's audio and video. Okay. It's modern police work, and I certainly applaud y'all for helping us get into the future.
well, we want you to make sure, Sheriff, that you understand it's a two-way street, because it's all about public safety.
Yep.
It's all about the safety of citizens. It's all about the safety of our sheriff's deputies.
Absolutely, and the deputies want it.
I'm gonna call this motion if you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed,
You
nay.
told me.
The motion carries unanimously.
Can I ask y'all for a favor? In light of this motion that's been passed,
Oh, yes, you wanted to take a picture
I
or
wanted to
something?
take a picture because, you know, we've got Instagram, Facebook, and I want to put this out that the board is supporting law enforcement and the body cameras. And if I could get a picture with you guys, that would be
Do
good.
you have a body camera with you?
I do have a photographer.
You have a body camera with you?
No, sir, I don't.
But, you know, it also means you guys don't have to sit out in the car for 2 hours uploading films in the middle of winter. That's pretty
Exactly.
uncomfortable.
All right,
Get
Sheriff,
back
if you'd
in
like
the
to come
shop.
forward,
Yes, sir.
I'll tell you what I'm gonna do.
Let Mr. Cully start talking.
I'll hold the picture of the body cam in front of him. Oh,
We got this picture.
yeah, that's fine. Okay, you can do it, then I'll have to move my
I'm
computer.
just gonna rip it out. We can hold it up.
All right, let's all,
Yeah, we got Twitter too, so.
here's your body cam.
Beautiful. All right.
Come on.
Yeah, I'm here.
You're gonna have to go into this corner of
Okay.
so she's got one.
All right.
Shake somebody's hand.
Okay.
Chairman, yeah.
All right, I like it. I wasn't going that fast.
I'm sorry? Doesn't have a radar.
What?
Get us all in this.
I'm trying. I'm gonna take a couple. I'm not the routine photographer.
Blood's fresh in my hands.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, Angel, you want the glass?
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Hey, one more time. Hey, and, chair was in. Oh, okay.
Oh, the chair. One more time, chairs in the
All right.
Okay.
Everybody good?
Okay.
All right, we're in time. Okay, we're shaking hands again.
Try to move it closer. You can't tell when they're taking pictures.
Right.
Yeah, no.
Turn off the sound for click.
That's awesome. Thank you all so much.
Send a copy of that to me, and I'll post it on my Facebook.
Okay, yes, sir, will do.
Send it to me now. I mean, you can start a Facebook. All right. We are doing great, Nancy. All right, we took care of the body cameras and the picture. We took care of the purchase for finance.
We got a deferral.
We got a deferral information and calendar items, Mr. Cully.
Wonderful. If you go to calendar items, Polar Bear Plunge on the 4th, you'll see that on February. It's our first thing.
Is my favorite music player going to be there?
I'm planning on it. Or otherwise, Mr. Hubert's gonna have a Mr. Microphone, so it could be tough. Our next board meeting, we're gonna be the 21st. Have y'all voted on that?
21st. We're gonna take a vote on that as soon as you're done.
Perfect. And that would be the only thing. President's Day is the 20th, so we would have a holiday in front of that, but that doesn't matter. We get the board packet done and delivered to you on Thursday, the 16th. We included an update from finance on capital projects. And one of the things that we wanted to ask, if you had any more thoughts regarding a joint meeting with the school board, they will be making their presentation of their budget at that rescheduled meeting on the 21st. So my recommendation would have a joint meeting sometime after that when we've actually gotten their budget.
We were asking for some information from schools.
I haven't gotten that yet, but in a conversation today, we do believe we're going to get basically a bullet list. Dr. Kaverick would like to provide context with the documents that are have lots of information, and she feels like that she needs to be able to explain that. But she is going to give us a bulleted list, so we will get that out to you when we get it.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
And I would say you have
What
time
time's the meeting?
at your 21st meeting if you want to set that work session, because you can recess out of that 21st meeting to
a work session.
Work session in March, maybe at some point, or late February.
All righty.
Mr. Cully? Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Only because our next meeting will be after the softball season starts. Do we have any updates on the field? I asked 2 weeks ago. I'm just checking again now.
That's Mr. Schiebel, who I think is in a conversation with the attorney. I think in my conversation with Ted, we had hoped to have everything finished for the grand opening and kind of do a park dedication, but we're not going to have the playground stuff ready yet for a dedication. But I think we were moving along pretty good. Softball for the girls' lights.
High school softball. Yes.
High school. Oh, good. Update them on that.
Permit is ready to be picked up. They may have already picked it up, and they are tentatively going to start on January 30th. Said they've got a 12 to 15 day time to get the softball field. As soon as they're done with that, they're moving over to the tennis courts.
Okay. So they're doing the softball field first,
Correct.
And our tentative start date's January 30th.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, that's what we've been told. So weather permitting, hopefully they can get in there, and they got concrete to pour and rain and cranes out there. So hopefully with wind, rain, and the softness of the ground, we'll work around all that. But we're hoping to have it done before, I think, February 15th, I think, is the softball field starting practice. So we should be good with that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
So before you go, Mr. Schiebel, you're gonna send us an email or whatever to say when it's done so we can come out and see it.
Absolutely. Yep, we can do that.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Proposed joint meeting with the school board, we took care of. Could we have a motion to reschedule our February 14th meeting to the 21st?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Black. Motion made by Mr. Seeley, seconded by Mr. Black to officially move our February 14th meeting to the 21st. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Mrs. Long had asked us to look at a June meeting.
July, after July, something to fill in that that huge space we have
You want to
between.
schedule it now, just to say we're scheduling it?
I'd rather wait, because
The 13th or 27th, you've got some things to do. Okay. Mrs. Cully, if you will put on your calendar to schedule another meeting in June. We're still gonna have the whole month of July off.
Oh, we're not gonna do, staff's recommendation was July 11th.
Oh, that's the recommendation for staff? Okay.
Yeah, but Mr. Parton's gonna be on vacation in late June. Mrs. Hall is gonna be on her 2 weeks in late July. So from a staff level, July, if you're gonna do a meeting, July the 11th was good for us. If you start moving all around, then we may have some hiccups, but we'll.
Black, is that okay with you?
As of now, but yeah, I mean.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can always, we've scheduled at the January meetings in the past for July meetings that by the time we got there, we didn't have anything that much in June and you canceled it.
That's kind of what we're trying to do now. But
so you can schedule one, but it may be that there's nothing and you end up canceling it due to conflict.
So did we officially schedule it?
No, y'all didn't. Last week, there was no July meeting scheduled, and we looked at it internally and said July 11th would work good for staff.
So let's take a
vacation.
motion now to take the July 11th meeting to put on the calendar as a placeholder if we need it.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mrs. Long, seconded by Mr. Black for the July 11th schedule, a meeting if we need it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Closing board comment.
Can I have one more thing? Can we just for clarity, because we had the meetings technically the 14th and you're moving it from an advertising, if you recessed out of this meeting to the 21st, we would be covered versus having to run ads. You know what ads cost us in newspaper. Of course, we'll put it on our website everywhere that it's the 21st, but I think there's some things legally when you see what I'm saying? You had the meeting on the 14th, so we'd have to provide some sort of legal notice that we've moved it to the 21st unless you recess out to the 21st. Like we recess to a special meeting. So you'd be recessing to a special meeting.
That sounds logical, but we're recessing to after when the meeting was scheduled.
Yeah, you have to, I would vote to cancel the 2/14 meeting and then recess to the 21st.
Mr. McKenzie, would you like to earn your salary for the night?
Yeah, I was talking to Shul, but yeah, I agree with that. I mean, you can recess to the 21st.
Do we need to cancel the 14th?
We're recessing to a meeting after our scheduled meeting?
Yes. Right. Right. Correct. Cancel the 14th, recess to the 21st.
All right, so we'll need another motion then to cancel our 14th meeting, just to make sure, which is what you're saying.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Motion to cancel the February 14th meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Black. Seconded by Mr. Seeley. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. That official is done. Last thing we need to do is closing board comments, since we did closed meeting. Closing board comments, reverse alphabetical order. Mr. Underwood. Mr. Seeley.
I have none.
Mrs. Long.
I have none.
Mr. Forehand.
None, sir.
Mr. Black.
None.
I have none. We will entertain a motion to recess to the 21st.
I will make the motion. We will recess to 6 o'clock on the 21st in this room.
Mr. Underwood seconds. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. That motion carries. We are recessed until February 21st. Enjoy your Valentine's Day, staff.